Thank you so much for coming. Again, my name is Garboden and Amira Fahoum. So what we're going to do today is to talk with you. We're going to bring the voice of the elders to you. The elders that have had dementia and their families, those that we have learned to love and who have been our teachers over the years. So we're going to be doing a lot of storytelling today and hopefully bringing forth the wisdom and the spirit of the people that taught us over the years. So Amira and I met about over 10 years ago, and in Eugene, Oregon. So we had an assisted living company at that time, and I needed an assistant. So Amira had just gotten married. She's pretty fresh out of college, and decided that she was going to come and apply to be my administrative assistant. So I looked at her resume, and she had a drama degree and a French degree, and I said, what did you want to be when you grew up? Why are you here? And she said, I want to be open to all of life's possibilities. And so I said, I want that girl with me. So we started our journey together then. And then the first week on the job.
My first week on the job was literally doing nothing but making copies. And helping everybody else figure out how to work the copy machine.
Right, because we have now someone that knew technology, which we didn't, how to work the copy machine, which we didn't. And so she came on, and then Amira became my elder and my mentor and my teacher as well on our journey. So we're going to start our story with the first couple of weeks after Amira started. And the state that we were in, actually, I called our company and said, there is an assisted living community in this town that is where people are suffering from abuse and neglect, and we need someone to manage this. Would you do this? And it was only a 28-unit community, so it was small, and I knew we might have a hard time finding an administrator for a community that small. So I thought, well, maybe we should try it out. Let me go check it out and see if it's something I want. Because what I did know about that building, they had been in the paper for abuse and neglect. They had barbed wire around the back fence to keep people from getting out. I knew that there were problems going on there. I didn't know if we wanted to take it on or not. But I had a friend that lived about a couple of hours away that was an assistant administrator in assisted living for 8 years. And I called her and I said, hey, would you like to be an administrator? You would be amazing. It's a couple hour drive away, and I told her about the community. And she said, yes, I'll come up right now and we'll go over and look at it. At this point, I had not seen the building. I had not been in it. So her name is Tammy. So when she came, we drove over there together. It was about 6 o'clock at night, just getting dark. And we went inside the building. And we were struck that moment that we walked in with the smell of urine and feces and vomit, and people screaming, help me, help me. And then these odd high-pitched sounds like, woo, 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 just going throughout the building. We walked in, there was a lady sitting at the table, right as we walked in, with pills in a pill cup and some on the floor, and there were no employees around. As we walked on through the building, we saw coming down the hall a little tiny lady with her hair all disheveled, and she had long black fingernails, and she couldn't talk, but she was just walking like this, and she was making this sound like woo, 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 walking toward us. It was terrifying, and we still could find no employees in the building. We finally walked outside, and we found some employees in the smoking area. And they said, oh, are you the people that's going to take over the management of this building? And I said, I don't know, we're just checking it out now. And they said, if you do, let me tell you something. There is a woman in there that bites. She has no teeth, but she can bite us. She kicks, she screams, and she smears poop all over the walls. You need to get rid of her. Tammy and I, by this time, were holding hands, and I did not want to let go of it. We turned and walked back in the building, and again we saw that little lady walking toward us. But we just ran out. I stood outside, and I could not even look at Tammy. I said, Tammy, I am so sorry. I did not know that it was going to be like this. I'm sorry you drove all the way up here. I understand it. She said, stop. And I looked at her and there were tears coming down her face. And she said, they need me. They need me. And so we decided to take on the challenge of his building. And that's when we began to learn things that we never thought we would have an opportunity to learn. Amira came in about 2 weeks after that, right? We had just opened the building, and she came in and helped us on this journey. So about a week later, Tammy and I walked into the building, and as soon as it still was the same way, but we had this courage that they need us, they need us. And we walked in, and there was that little lady doing this, and she had poop all over her, and Tammy just knew what to do. She didn't have any of the training I'm going to talk about today, but some people have a knack of what to do. So she walked up to her. Did you leave her? She walked up to her. No, yeah, not walked up to her. But I know you can't imagine poop all over her, but we had poop, and Tammy grabbed her by the face and said, I love you, I love you, and pulled her close. It didn't matter to Tammy, it didn't matter to Tammy, but Tammy knew instinctively that every human being needs love. Did you flip the slide? So this is the lady right here. I don't know if you can see it, that light above it. So her name is Madeline, and she was 92 years old when we met her, and she was the inspiration for us to find our way. What we found out was that she was the grandmother of 13 children, but she had no family in this town. She had no teeth, so the doctor had ordered Ensure, but the employees never gave her anything to eat. If you have no teeth, you can eat mashed potatoes, you can eat soft food, but that caused continual diarrhea. So she was continually having poop issues. We also found out that she was on over 20 medications, and 12 of them were psychotropics. And she was not crazy. She was 92 years old. So we knew when we walked in there that this woman was going to be our teacher and our guide. So what do you think happened to those two employees that we talked to?
I encouraged them to find another job.
Yeah.
I did. So I asked them to leave, but over the years, as we have learned so much. I'm thinking maybe they just didn't know. Maybe they had no one to teach them. Maybe they had good, well-intentioned hearts, but no one taught them. So sometimes I wish I could look them up and find them and say, let me teach you. But I did what I felt like I had to do at that time. So we actually placed most of the buildings in more appropriate placement. There were homeless people and mental health issues in the building with older people, which was not a good thing. And we only had 7 people left in the building, and one of them was Madeline. So the employees had asked me to get rid of her, but she was one that was left there with us. Over the years, next few months, we began studying. We began learning about what we could do to help someone like Madeline. Because the big thing was, I started reading books like Learning to Speak Alzheimer's, which is a really good book. But in most of the books, it was saying as people get dementia that they lose themselves. But I could look in Madeline's face, and she was in there. She just couldn't communicate to us. She was still a whole capable person. And so we started searching for a way to be able to connect with her and for her to connect with us. And we were hoping we could help her find a way. So as Madeline walked up and down the halls, she had the drama degree here. Walked up and down the halls.
I never thought I'd be using it for this.
So one of the employees then just started doing the same thing she was along with her. And then Madeline made a connection with us. So this is called mirroring. We learned later, if you mirror the behavior, it's not making fun of them, but it's just doing what they're doing, that they can build a connection, which that was pretty amazing. And then we realized that she loved the old gospel music when the gospel bands came, and she would clap to the music. She couldn't talk or speak, but she could really do that. So we tried something else. So when she was walking along, we were nearing, we started doing this. You are my sunshine, yet my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. All of a sudden, the music stimulated something in her, and it made she could do the cadence with the music. So we kept trying to communicate with her in that way. And as we learned more about her, we recognized that that she totally was there. She just couldn't talk. So we began studying something called the Eden Alternative, and I am an Eden Alternative educator. And we learned from Dr. Bill Thomas that elders are dying of loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. You can heal COPD, or fix, not heal it, but you can treat COPD, you can treat other illnesses, but really it's the plagues of the spirit that people are dying from. And so we learned about person-centered care. So we let her have a choice, and we worked very closely with her. We learned a lot. Here's a big thing that we learned on the next slide. This is from Milton Meyerhoff. He's a psychiatrist. We sometimes speak as if caring does not require knowledge. Like everyone cares. Many of you in this room are caregivers of someone, but we talk like it. You just need to have a big heart. As if caring for someone is simply a matter of good intentions and warm regard. But to care, I must understand the other's needs. I must understand them. I must know them, and be able to respond properly to them. And clearly, good intentions do not guarantee this. As we saw from those two caregivers that probably came into the industry with big hearts, but didn't know what to do. To care for someone, we must know many things. So we began intensely educating our caregivers. One of the big things we learned is Maslow's, anyone seen this before, Maslow's Hierarchy? Okay, if you're a nurse or taking psychology, or you probably are a teacher, you probably have this. So all human beings, and you also have it in your handout, need these things in order to grow. So think back to Madeline. Maslow did this hierarchy back in 1943 as a paper of basic human needs. The very basic of human needs is physiological. We need to go to the bathroom, we need to sleep, we need to eat. Those physiological needs are made. Did Madeline have even her physiological needs met? No, she didn't. So that basic human need was not met for her. The next is safety and security. Safety, did you think she felt safe in that environment? Why do you think she was kicking and screaming and biting? She did not feel safe. So the first physiological need and safety needs, and this all human beings need, or you will die. The next is love and belonging, a feeling of friendship and family and love. She didn't have that, did she? At all. Until Tammy walked up to her and said, Madeline, I love you. That moment, Madeline began to heal. And the next is self-esteem. So all of us have a need for self-esteem. So she was a grandmother of 13. She was a master gardener. She was the grandmother of the entire neighborhood. And was she being treated with honor and self-esteem? So all of these things were not met for her. And she lived 5 more years after we got there, but I believe if we had not arrived, she would not have, and I think we arrived at the right time. I think things don't happen by accident. We arrived at the right time for her to teach us and for us to love her. So that this is for all of us. All of us need a physiological safety, love and belonging, and self-esteem so we can self-actualize. And that means that we can be our highest self. Because everyone wants to die in peace. And so so we as caregivers and the hospice people were right there with us. If we can make sure these needs are met, physiological, safety and security, love and belonging, self-esteem, then we can help, especially end of life, we can help people come to their highest actualization. I think of us as kind of like life doulas, or like almost like midwifing people from from this life into their next great adventure. And that's what we were really trying to do. When we learned about this, it was like, this is what we're going to do for Madeline. So on the next slide, we actually talked about our caregivers too, and you and me. So all of us have our physiological needs, which are the basic stuff. You know, we can go shopping, and we do it by here, right here is where we are. We're all working to get the basic stuff, right? And hopefully at work, we feel love and belonging with our care team members. And self-esteem is, now I know what I'm doing, more work. And we do it so we can do what we want to do. So all of us have a basic human need for all of these things to self-actualize and be the greatest human being you can be. And we as caregivers have the opportunity to help people who can't do it for themselves to be the greatest human beings they can be. All we're talking about is love. All this triangle is love. And at work it seems kind of weird to go around and say, you need to love each other. I say that to our care team members. Say it to families. We need to love each other. That's what it's all about. But if we can meet all of these physiological, safety, and health needs and inclusion, it's all about love. And we're going to go to the next slide. And everyone stand up. Please stretch. You can sing too. All you need is love. Love is all you need. Please stretch. I want to tell you right now, I'm going to stop at the hour and give you a break, and we'll have you do a couple of stretches like this as well. Okay, sit down. You think it's loud? Yeah, I think it's loud. So we started we started searching to see what was happening with Madeline. So we knew that she could feel loved. We knew that we could love her. She felt safe and belonging. But what was happening in her brain? Because we thought if we could figure that out, then we might be able to help her more. So here's a short video about the brain.
What is Alzheimer's disease? Alzheimer's is a slow, fatal disease of the brain affecting 1 in 10 people over the age of 65. No one is immune. The disease comes on gradually as 2 abnormal protein fragments called plaques and tangles accumulate in the brain and kill brain cells. They start here in the hippocampus, the part of the brain where memories are first formed. Over many years' time, the plaques and tangles slowly destroy the hippocampus, and it becomes harder and harder to form new memories. Simple recollections from a few hours or days ago that the rest of us might take for granted are just not there. After that, more plaques and tangles spread into different regions of the brain, killing cells and compromising function wherever they go. This spreading around is what causes the different stages of Alzheimer's. From the hippocampus, the disease spreads here to the region of the brain where language is processed. When that happens, it gets tougher and tougher to find the right word. Next, the disease creeps toward the front of the brain, where logical thought takes place. Very gradually, a person begins to lose the ability to solve problems, grasp concepts, and make plans. Next, the plaques and tangles invade the part of the brain where emotions are regulated. When this happens, the patient gradually loses control over moods and feelings. After that, the disease moves to where the brain makes sense of things it sees, hears, and smells. In this stage, Alzheimer's wreaks havoc on a person's senses and can spark hallucinations. Eventually, the plaques and tangles erase a person's oldest and most precious memories, which are stored here in the back of the brain. Near the end, the disease compromises a person's balance and coordination. And in the very last stage, it destroys the part of the brain that regulates breathing and the heart. The progression from mild forgetting to death is slow and steady, and takes place over an average of 8 to 10 years. It is relentless and, for now, incurable. Helping your family, friends, and neighbors to better understand Alzheimer's will reduce stigma, improve care, and even help the fight for a cure. Thanks for helping to do your part. Learn more at www.aboutalz.org.
So we had to face the fact that there was something going wrong in Madeline's brain that we could not cure. We were like, we're going to save Madeline. But we realized we needed to educate ourselves, and so we really started studying the brain and trying to figure out, not can we cure her, but can we help her have her voice back so that she can tell us she loves us every time how can we do that? So that was really our mission. We really started studying the brain. So did you notice in that video how the Alzheimer's went around and had cleared the back? Oh, put your hands like this, put your thumbs inside, and close your hands and put them together like this, like it's a little heart. Think of that as the brain. The thumb is the limbic brain. The outside is the rest of the brain. So the limbic brain is the very last thing that is to go. It's protected actually by this top part of the brain where the damage is happening. In that limbic brain, there is emotion, there is the ability to love, there is ability to connect, you can spark that part of the limbic brain with music, as we found out with Madeline, and it can help people come to themselves for a bit, so that we could connect even for a moment. So that limbic brain, which is in here, it's in all of our brains, it's in your head, it's like right in the middle. That is there. So even until the end of life, they can love and they can connect with us, and they know we are there. And they are full, capable human beings, just without the ability to communicate, because that brain got all messed up. So the limbic system is right here. And like I said, it can feel love, it can feel emotion, and we knew that. We weren't educated on this, but we knew that when we told Madeline we loved her, that she loved us, even if she couldn't say it. We knew we were connecting. We knew when the music came on that something sparked in here, and for a moment, she could feel herself. So let's go to the next thing. So we really need to understand. So you'll tap this and it'll make things pop up. We're just going to tap it. So dementia. How many of you have heard of the word dementia? So when people say dementia, when doctors say someone has dementia, I'm like, what kind of dementia? Because you can have dementia if you get dehydrated or if you get a urinary tract infection. So so dementia is simply a symptom. There's all kinds of dementia. Some dementias are curable and some are not. So that's what I want to talk about now. Dementia is just a description of a symptom. So one of the symptoms is memory. And so you may forget things. But if I forget where I parked my car, as long as I know what these keys are for, I'm okay. So people always say, what Dr. Thomas in the Eden Alternative said is that as we get older, people think you're starting, sometimes you're 50 or 40 and people say, I've had a senior moment. But actually you have so much information in your head that it takes a longer time for the brain to go in there and find it. And then eventually, I remember, you got it. So I never say I had a senior moment. I say just a moment, I'll remember it. We don't want that self-fulfilling prophecy that just because we forget things or can't recall it as quickly when we're older, that means that we're starting to get dementia. That can be a case, but there is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If people think it, it's like then they think everything is going wrong. But memory is one of the symptoms. The other is orientation. don't know what city I'm in right now, or what room I am, or I get lost when I drive or when I walk somewhere. That's orientation. Another is language. There's something called confabulation, which means you think you're saying one thing and you say something else. So if I might say, I want to go on the train, but you meant I want to go on the car, because some of those words got kind of mixed up in there. So it's language. Judgment is another one. I had a 97-year-old friend that called a taxi to take her to the car place, and she bought a new car and drove it back, and it's like, oh, I forgot I don't have a driver's license. It took a lot to get that money back from the car dealer, but yeah. So judgment sometimes is not good. Perception. So perception in how you see things, because the eyes change. So one thing that happens in the brain is that your vision becomes called binocular vision. So look at me like this, like through binoculars. Look at someone at the table like this. Look at each other. So you can't see things up or down or on the side. See? So someone with dementia, they can only see that, and someone taps them on the shoulder, they might get afraid, because they can only see a certain way. And that's why there's falls often as well. Another one is concentration. I start a sentence and I can't complete it. And the other is task sequencing. So I get up and put my clothes on, and I put my shoes on, and my pants on, and then put my shorts on, or pants on, or whatever. So you forget how to sequence things. But those are all symptoms of dementia. There are, go ahead. Go. There we go.
That's really good.
We plan this.
Yeah.
There are two kinds of dementia. One are the irreversible, and these are things like Madeline had that we could not get rid of. Alzheimer's, you've heard of. We talked a little bit about on that video, and how that goes. There's one called mad cow disease. It's not much in the United States, but the quick deterioration of the brain from eating beef that is contaminated. You hear about it more in Europe. Multi-infarct or vascular dementia from having a stroke. It can cause some damage in the brain. Tick's disease is the one with social etiquette. It's the frontal lobe. So someone might say, "You're ugly," or they just no social etiquette. They just say this. They don't, because that part's gone. Lewy body disease, it comes with hallucinations. Usually hallucinations of animals or people. And so they actually really see animals or people. And sometimes when I'm working with someone like that, I just see it along with them. Just enter their reality, because it's very real to them. It's not often scary, but they actually see things. Huntington's disease is the early onset Alzheimer's. You might have heard of this. It is genetic. So people in their 30s and 40s get Alzheimer's. It's usually a family genetic thing, and it usually goes fairly quickly. AIDS can cause dementia. Parkinson's, like Michael J. Fox has that. So it's the stiffness of the body, and the dementia comes usually at the end, and sometimes they don't get dementia at all. But that is one of the side effects of Parkinson's. And then Korsakoff syndrome is from alcoholism, and that one's a very interesting. I met a man, carried on a conversation with him. I said, he's okay. But then, so he carried on a conversation, but he could not remember he had a conversation. It came again. So that's interesting how your brain is affected so many ways, and all of these can cause one or more of those symptoms of dementia that you saw. So I told my kids, the doctor ever tells you mom has dementia, ask them what kind. Because maybe it's a reversible dementia that can be fixed. So if you have a thyroid disorder, and it's not treated, it can cause symptoms of dementia. You fix it by taking your thyroid medication. Drug or medication interactions. Interestingly, a lot of the medication that are prescribed by physicians do cause really strong symptoms of dementia, so it almost looks like Alzheimer's. So it's really, here's one rule for you. You don't get dementia overnight. If you're fine today and tomorrow you have dementia, it's probably a reversible dementia. Dehydration, just not getting enough water. Even depression and stress. I had a friend that just said she was forgetting things and there was a lot going on in her life, and it was some of the symptoms of dementia, but she just had stress. An infection, Could be like a urinary tract infection or some chronic infection inside your body. That's what I tell my kids too. If all of a sudden, check to make sure I don't have a urinary tract infection before you put me away. I went to one community in Wisconsin, and there was a lady in there that I met, and she was saying, why am I in here? I was sick, I went to the doctors, and I was in the hospital, and then they brought me back here, not to my apartment. And so she was totally fine, but the doctor had misdiagnosed and said she has dementia now, so she needs to go to a memory care. And she didn't, so she was very happy the day that I opened the doors for her. So that's another thing, be careful. Doctors are really good, but not all doctors have a lot of understanding of dementia, so we need to educate ourselves. Lack of sleep, I travel a lot. Sometimes I get up and I don't know what town I'm in or the bathroom is in the hotel room, and then I have this, symptom of disorientation. So lack of sleep can really cause the same symptom. A metabolic disorder, brain tumor, hematoma, all of these can be corrected. All of them can. And I think that's important to know. So if anyone you love or anyone tells you you have dementia, ask what kind is it. And then that will make them dig a little further. Music sparks that limbic brain. This is a little bit.
When I first met him, he was very isolated. Someone comes into a nursing home, they start to feel very disconnected from their lives, from who they've always been.
If you can imagine somebody who hasn't recognized their loved one in 5 or 6 years.
I've been strong for 4 years. I just can't take it anymore.
Music can do things which language can't.
When I learned that maybe 90% of a resident's time is spent idle, let's try this and see what difference the iPods has made.
I have one resident that Billy opened her eyes, she didn't respond. Nothing worked. It was amazing once we put the iPod on her. She started shaking her feet, getting her arms. I'm seeing her all over again.
I'm going to take the music for 1 second, okay? Just to ask you a few questions. Okay?
Yes or no question.
What does music do to you?
Give me the feeling of love, romance. Because right now the world needs to come into music, singing. You got beautiful music here. Beautiful, all of it. And I feel the vein of love, dream.
When music therapy in Alzheimer's patients, something very powerful time is at work.
This iPod keeps me happy. It keeps me from crying. And when I'm upset, all I have to do is turn up my music. And it soothes my nerves, and I go fast asleep.
And with an average cost of about $80, this is less than most people's daily medication costs. In terms of what difference it makes for the quality of life for an individual who's able to receive this, it's just immeasurable. So for me, I can't think of any greater value.
So about 10 years ago, Dr. Oliver Sacks, which was this neuroscientist, he started studying the effects of music on the limbic brain for those living with dementia. And they went around to nursing homes across the United States. And I followed that documentary up until they released the book, the movie called Alive Inside is also a book. And so we followed that, and we actually started practicing that with our elders. So we would find out their tunes that they have. We would download them. I didn't know how to do that at the time, so I found a 20-year-old to help me download iTunes. So we would interview the residents for or their families. The music between the ages of 8 and 25 is usually music that sticks in that part of the brain. So we interviewed them, we put the earphones on them and then took them off. And some of them that didn't talk or didn't want to talk, I don't know. When we started interviewing them, they started talking about the memories that were evoked by that music. In one community I went to, there was a man that had what's called salad language. It's all mixed up like a salad. So I called his daughter and she told me the songs he likes. And this was new. I just watched this documentary. I had the carotene in a circle and I started talking to them about this possibility. And he sat in a circle with us with the earphones on. It was kind of like, pointing, singing, We took them off and he spoke in clear, complete sentences when we talked with him. We all started crying. It doesn't cure anyone, but for that moment and that time, that he was able to feel the wholeness of himself. So again, so what we are doing is that in any of our memory cares, and even if we went to another building where just elder people that didn't have any memory issues, we did the music with them and it helped. If you can't walk, it gives you a sense of movement. And if you are stressed, it relaxes you. It has to be their tunes. So it was amazing. We kept looking at that limbic brain and we learned that aromatherapy actually stimulates that limbic brain. And if you think about it, here's the nose, here's the limbic brain right here. And through the olfactory bulb, the aroma is sent directly to the center of the brain into the limbic system. And where it's processed, it releases some neurochemicals. So sometimes we do the combination of music and little aromatherapy in the room. We maybe in the morning, put music, the oldies in the morning, noon, do some big band, and evening maybe Yo-Yo Ma or some string music in the evening. And it's amazing how the music and the aromas can calm the individual. And I know that you are filming over there, walking back and forth. Sorry. So just one more slide here. So what is your perception when you see this? Which of these are the larger? Which of these are larger? Which one looks larger? Right. So they're both the same, and this is an example of when the space surrounding digits deceive our eyes. So what happens when people have some type of dementia or memory loss or brain damage, their perception is different. And every one of us in this room can have a different perception, even with totally healthy brains. Let's see the next one. What do you see here?
A back.
Someone saw a duck? Someone see something else? Okay, it's a duck or a rabbit. Just depends on your perception. So all of us, as human beings, we have different perceptions. When that is complicated with damage to the brain, you can imagine what a confusing world it is. So Amira, I'm going to give you, I think you have time to introduce this here. Yeah. So Amira has another image for you.
What do you see in this one? You and me. You and me. Yeah, different people see different things. We actually were able to do this shorter version of this course at the Oregon Healthcare Association conference, and somebody shouted from the back of the room, there's about 150 people, and somebody said, "Joy!" And I said, "What?"
Mirror.
Now you see joy going up. And I had never seen that before. I looked at this about 50 times or more, and I'd never seen that before. And I thought that was completely amazing that one person saw something completely different than what anybody else had ever seen. Which just, I think, further illustrates the point that some people are truly unique. So I want to introduce, based on that, if we're all unique individuals and we all see things in different ways, how do we communicate with people who are all different? Each individual that we communicate with is different, and we're all different. So how are we going to do this? So there's three things one of the things that when we started down this journey, you'll hear a little bit more about a woman named Naomi Feil that we actually started studying, reading her books. This is one of her books, actually. the validation breakthrough, and started learning that empathy had a big part of this. Now, most caregivers are really good at empathy because they really feel, or at least have compassion. They feel for these people that they're caring for. But there's 3 keys to communicating with empathy that we found. So the first is to be non-judgmental. Sometimes I teach our staff to physically take your judgment cap and take it off. Take your little judgment cap and remove it, because it's really hard to judge. We all love to judge as human beings. We just do. It's in our nature. But we have to learn how to be non-judgmental. And we need to know the person as a unique individual. We need to know who this person is. Who is Sally and Bill? And who's Renee and Faye and Ken? Who are these people? What are they like? What drives them as individuals? And then the third part is to reflect and feel the emotion of the other person. And this can be a really scary thing, because people think, what if somebody's angry? Do I have to be angry back? And then is that going to ruin my whole day because I'm angry now too? Because I was feeling what they're feeling? Not necessarily. We're going to learn how to do that a little bit, because you don't have to take on the emotion. You can feel and reflect that emotion without taking it on from someone else. And it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice, but it is possible. So in this video, we're gonna, this is, keep talking, this is how I want to introduce it. Oh, that's okay. So just to introduce the video, this is by a TED Talk that was illustrated by Brene Brown. And Brene Brown is a sociologist. She's done lots of TED Talks, she's written books, and I think this is probably one of the best illustrations of what empathy is, because most people think they know what empathy is, but confuse it with sympathy, right? I totally know what you're going through. Yeah, of course, sure. Yeah, let's go shopping, right? I mean, she explains it, I think, the best, so I'll let her do the talking.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think that empathy is this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
and love, right? Connection and love. And the last little bit of what she says there, I think, is one of the best takeaways I've ever had, in that rarely does something that you say make something better, but it's a connection. So if we're working with people, or we're trying to communicate with someone who can't verbally communicate, then we don't have to say anything. We don't have to. It's not about what we're saying at that point. It's about that connection that we're making. Do you want to take a quick break?
I want to tell them one thing about Naomi Fahoum, and we'll take a break.
Okay.
So before we go through the rest of this, Naomi Fahoum actually kind of changed our lives. She was from Cleveland, Ohio. She grew up in an old folks home. When we met her, she was 80, and that was like 15 years ago.
Felt like 15 years ago.
She travels all over Europe talking about validation and connecting with empathy with people. Have any of you heard of Naomi Fahoum? Okay, you have, yeah. So we had studied her in our little group in this community where Madeline was. We had studied her, and we got so excited because she was telling how we could communicate with Madeline. So one day our receptionist got a phone call, and it was a man that said, "Could my mom come and do a documentary in your place?" And she said, "Well, who's your mom?" And he said, "Naomi Fahoum." It's like, oh my gosh, she was visiting her son in that city. And so we said, sure. And I'm telling you that she's about this tall. When she walked in, I was like she was a rock star. And she told the camera crew, "Come over here, Jean's about to give us a commercial now." So, but for 6 months, she was in the community where Madeline lived and worked with our elders and did create a documentary that's about 20 minutes long about her work with those that have dementia. And I'm going to tell you the rest of the story right now. At the end, by the time Naomi left our community, Madeline had gained her voice. So what we're going to teach you helped this with Madeline. So at the end of her life, like I said, she lived another 5 years. So she didn't come fully to her voice, but she could say in her little voice, "I love you." And she could say that. And she could say yes and no and make her needs known verbally. And we were so excited. So at the end of her life, we were able to surround her with love, bring the music into her, turn on our aromatherapy, and talk with her and tell her, "Madeline, we love you." And she could say, "I love you," back to us. So she had the opportunity to die in peace. And we had the opportunity to be the conduits through our passion for learning for her. And so I just want to tell you right now that Madeline's Spirit is with us, and she's the one that has taught us and that helps us have hope for others that we can connect with as we have with her. So we're going to take a break, and you're going to hear Naomi talk, and she's going to tell you about her theory that that we can connect with any human being through empathy, which is through in the limbic brain, which we were so excited that we learned about that limbic brain. So take 7 minutes. There's a bathroom here, walk outside, just a little stretch break. And in this, Amira's going to show you how to do it. So you get to hear from Naomi.